If spiritual awakening can help you to heal your traumas, then how do you go about that process? If you've been following the series of videos I've done recently, then I have explained how spiritual awakening is the exact opposite process to the formation of trauma patterns based on traumatic events in your past. You have built a life around various forms of fear, the illusion of separation, pain, the fear of loss, and all of these things. If you really look at every little detail of your life, whether you are protecting yourself from something or heading towards something, whether you're working towards something, your career, your ambitions, everything that you have built to a certain extent is built on the perspective of your finite self, the perspective of you, the human being. So perhaps you are depressed because of grief because you think you lost someone who died. Perhaps you are going to school so that you can get a better job so you can make money because you think that your survival is created by you. Perhaps you are taking a certain position in a relationship because you think you're being strong and assertive. But what's really happening is that you're remembering an unhealthy version of relationship that you saw in your youth, and you are fear-driven, afraid that will happen to you again. This is just a really, really simplistic version of how it works, but essentially everything in your life comes from the fact that you believe yourself to be separate. You are seeking pleasures for your body, you're seeking entertainment for your mind, you're seeking things and activities that will help your mind to calm itself and soothe itself. You are seeking outlets for the dark emotions, or engagements with other people on the dark emotions, or you're seeking to trigger the happy emotions through activities. But everything that you do in your life is based on the fact that somewhere along the line you forgot the perspective of yourself as a divine being, and you are now living as a finite physical being separate from the rest of the world. And that is a trauma response. That is the ultimate trauma. It is behind every trauma pattern that you have. It is the end result of every negative thing that has ever happened to you. Whether it's considered to be a big or small thing, at some point in your life, you felt fear. You felt pain. You felt alone. You felt abandoned. You felt helpless. And that became a place where you were stuck. And you're literally frozen in space in that point. And you need to move forward. You need to live life from the truth. You need to live life from the fact that you are not alone, that you are loved, that you are loved by not a flawed human being. You are loved by love itself. You are loved by the infinite source of love. You are capable. Not capable because you study hard and you work hard. You are capable because you are capable, infinitely capable of anything. You are worthy, not because you deserve, not because you're a good girl or a good boy, not because you did good deeds. You are worthy because you are worthy. You are loved, you are capable, you are worthy. And anything is possible in your life because the vast majority of your being is not this human being, this physical body. The vast majority of your being exists in the spiritual world, exists before this particular timeline or before this particular version of the universe. The vast majority of yourself exists where everything is possible before anything has really been chosen yet. The vast majority of your being exists where your future is not determined. It exists where there is really no time, and where there is no limitations, where there is abundance of all resources. Everything exists in the spirit realm, and the vast majority of you lives in that spirit realm. And if you can reconnect with that and live from that place, your life can be completely different. I had the intense moment of my spiritual awakening 8 years ago. Before that, I was overworked and I was stressed. I was depressed. I was alone. I was frustrated. My marriage was a source of stress. I felt alone in the marriage. There was no connection. There There's a lot of anger and a lot of aloneness and a lot of passive aggressiveness. My jobs, I hated them. I hated going to work. I was working far more than I possibly could and making an incredibly small amount of money. I hated the smell of this world. I hated everything. It just had a stench to it. I was perpetually preoccupied with all the things that was wrong in society and this world and politics and the economy. And I felt that what I perceived to be going on out there was somehow reality and somehow affected me. And I was obsessed with knowing more about it. And I could not sleep. I had terrible, terrible insomnia. I was trying to self-soothe with food, with entertainment, and with weed. And none of that was helping. It was all spiraling. I didn't have the time or money to spare on any of those things, but I still did it. And my work was not fulfilling. My body was not healthy. I had no strong, meaningful connections. I had no sense of family, no sense of community. I was grieving the loss of a relative who had very recently died suddenly from cancer. And I was not acknowledging the fact that I had decades of memories, decades of events that happened to me that hurt. I didn't know the word anxiety. I didn't know the word trauma. I didn't know the word pain. And then there was one moment, one single moment. There's a whole bunch of other stuff too, but there was one moment. And after that, I now consider my life to be before that and after that. And it wasn't a moment of enlightenment. There was no angels, no trumpets. There was no light. There was no enlightenment. There was simply a moment in deep meditation where I recognized that the voice of my mind, everything that I thought I was, everything that I imagined I was simply an experience within my being. My being was far bigger and greater than that. And myself, I watched my mind. And I was like, oh, okay. And my mind was fretting about what it frets about. And all of those things that it was concerned about, I was like, oh, okay. Okay. And that moment changed my entire life. I then went through a phase of, healing and releasing and forgiving and accepting and understanding and learning and unlearning and reprogramming. All of that stuff is still work that needs to be done. But the moment of healing was that moment. And today I live a life where I am connected to everyone, where I feel love in my relationship. My marriage is fantastic. I feel love with my friends. I experience the entire world from a place of love, including people who are doing things that other people would consider mean or spiteful or whatever. I perceive everything as love. I receive everything as love. I understand that this world is a play. I understand that everyone is acting from their spiritual disconnect. I accept everyone and forgive everyone. I understand that I am fully abundant, and I live a life where I thoroughly enjoy the things that I spend my time doing, and I make really good, comfortable income from it. I am not worried. I'm not worried about my death. I'm not worried about the death of the people that are very close to me. And I'm not worried about my financial existence at all. I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful to be here. I sleep extremely well at night. I'm connected. My body feels good. My energy feels good. I eat well. I live well. And I'm not afraid of disease. All of that shift from who I was to who I am today, occurred because I remembered who I was. And I started living from that place. I did this, when we're talking about trauma, we talk also about forgiving and about healing and about shadow work and all of that. That's all great. That had to happen. There was years of that, and it continues to happen, and it will never end. I will always be doing that work. But this healing, this shift from one version of life to the other version of life, happened spontaneously and completely, and happened without the need for all of that shadow work, all of that cleaning, all of that therapy, the journaling and the whatever, introspection and that kind of stuff. All of that stuff will always continue. But I understand that my mind is healing, that my emotions are purging, that my body is releasing, that my memory is reprocessing. But I understand that I am none of those things. Those things occur to me. They're tools that I have. They're experiences that I witness. But I am spirit. Okay, I'm digressing. How do you begin this process? If you've been watching the series, I've done a couple of videos. I encourage you to watch them that explain the fact that we need to shift from living as separate ego selves to living as spirit. We need to allow the spiritual awakening. The trick here, this is the tough part. It is both really easy and really difficult, but here's the tough part. How do you, as the ego, fix the situation when you, as the ego, is the problem? That's the tough one. That can take you lifetimes to figure out. A metaphor somebody used once that I think is very appropriate. If you try to stand in a bucket and then you try to lift yourself using the handle of that bucket, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's a complete mess. You are doing the wrong thing to the wrong person from the wrong place. It's a complete mess. So we understand that the ego is the egoic mind, and the egoic identity is a layer of consciousness that is an illusion, that is acting from a bad place. It's acting from a place of separateness and finiteness and fear. And therefore, it cannot create anything good. Okay, we want to shift the spirit. How do you shift the spirit? From there. Your only place that you can act is there, because that's where you are. Okay, so what happens, and this is, I personally think, the absolute greatest piece of hope in the spiritual journey: you are not the one doing it. In the first place, you're not the one doing it. Your spirit is guiding your spiritual awakening. Your spirit is the one that is making you feel discontent in your life to the point that you feel depressed. Your spirit is the one that is guiding you through the dark night of the soul, and your spirit is the one that will hold you and bring you through it. Your spirit is the one that is pointing out the linkages that you need to notice in order to realize how you ended up creating this illusion in the first place. Your spirit is the one that is guiding you to the teachings and the teachers along the way. It is not possible to awaken all by yourself. It is a universal law that you have to have people come into your life and light your flame with their flame and share their teachings with you. And your spirit is the one that will make you accidentally find these people. I was guided to one of the most influential teachings I ever had at a Tim Hortons one night. 7 o'clock in the night, freezing cold, and I met a stranger and had a conversation, and that changed my life. I could give you a dozen other examples. I accidentally overheard a conversation about a thing, and I went to the thing, and the thing changed my life. Like, your spirit is the one that is guiding this. So trust in that process, first of all. The fact that you are doing this as the ego is an illusion. However, the ego does have a role. The ego has to grant permission. You have to allow this to happen, and this has phases to it. So how do you allow it to happen? First, you have to believe it is possible. You have to begin to remember, I am a spirit. There is spirit. I am telling you this. I used to be an atheist. I used to be, one of those science people. And I'm telling you from experience that atheism is a trauma response from religious abuse. You need to come back to the point where you say, there is more to me than my mind. I acknowledge this. I exist prior to this physical life. I acknowledge this. I do believe that there is a part of my being, my consciousness or my spirit or my soul, whatever you want to call it, that existed before I was born and will exist after I die. So these are things that you have to contemplate to the point where you believe. Then you have to come to the point where you ask for help. And to ask for help is the ultimate form of humility. It comes when you realize that you cannot get this done. Your spirit will stand to the side and let you flop about like a dying fish until you're done. And when you're done, then you say, I'm done. I'm done. Unfortunately, for most people, it comes at a point of breaking, a point of heartbreak, a point of desperation where you beg your spirit to help you. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can simply logic your mind through it and say, okay, clearly I'm acting from a place of trauma. Clearly I don't know what I'm doing. Clearly I don't have full vision. Maybe I need to hand this over. Whatever gets you there, whether it's absolute rock bottom or whether it is logicking your way through the process, or whether like a child who's very innocent and very trusting, you say, well, of course, if I have a spirit, then I want help from my spirit. Whatever. You have to believe you have a spirit. You have to ask your spirit for help. Spirit, I cannot do this by myself. I'm sorry I stand in the way. I'm sorry I resist. Please do this for me. And third, you have to allow it to happen. So I did a video on grace. Go look up that video on grace. It explains it really well. But essentially, there is a veil, a thick veil, and you have forgotten what the other side looks like. You have forgotten what it feels like to live as spirit. And every now and then, your spirit comes in and helps you. We call it grace. God gives you grace, your spirit gives you grace, whatever way you want to say. Grace comes and helps. And grace punches little holes in the veil and allows you to see the light and allows you to suspect a little more what life is like on that side, and allows you to believe a little bit more. And eventually there's enough holes in the veil that the veil dissolves and you can fully live and experience the world as your spirit. How do these holes and punctures occur? They occur when you allow the consciousness of spirit to exist. Your higher consciousness, your higher self, God consciousness, Christ consciousness, or existing in the heart space. I have done a lot of videos on them. Go have a look. They all have those titles on them. You can exist as a series of endless thoughts played in a loop. That is your mind. And as long as you listen to the voice of the mind, you listen to the voice of the mind. But if a metaphor I like to use is that right now you can hear my voice because you're listening to it. Can you also hear the other sounds in the room? Can you hear the sound of your breathing? Can you hear the sound of silence? Silence exists at the same time as my voice. Silence exists between every single word that I say, and it exists beneath every word that I say. But you are placing your attention, your awareness on my voice. And every now and then, you need to recognize the sound of silence. In the same way, you're constantly aware of your mind, your thoughts, your to-do list, who you're angry with, who you're upset with, how bad the traffic was, what you have to do, you're late, you're tired, you have a headache, you need to do this, you need to do that. Whatever it is you're thinking about, that's where you place your awareness. That is where you place your consciousness. So your consciousness is on the egoic level of identification. The vibration, if you will, the awareness is here. And every now and then, as often as you're capable, you need to hear or perceive or sense spirit, which also exists, but you're not listening to it. How do you listen to spirit? In the beginning, you have to trick yourself. If you take a conscious breath and you are totally aware of that breath, if you only listen to and feel your breath, you cannot think another thought. And in that moment, you are not listening to your mind. And every single moment that you're not fully identified with the consciousness and perspective of your mind, you are identified as spirit. So in the space of one conscious breath, between the inhale and the exhale, there is God. Once a day, take one conscious breath, and grace will pierce a hole in your veil. There are other ways also. If you are watching these videos, chances are you've encountered them. Have you learned how to use mantras to cause your mind to just get tired and step to the side a little bit so that you can have some peace and quiet? Have you learned to use other traditions, drumming, dancing, chanting, or physically grueling conditions such as sweat lodges or anything like that? Hard work, in fact, just simple hard work. Eventually your mind gets tired and you just don't want to put effort behind thinking anymore. And there's moments, split seconds, 5 seconds, a minute, 10 minutes. If you go into yoga nidra, half an hour, right before you fall asleep, right after you wake up, right after sex. Those are all moments where yoga nidra occurs, where that stillness occurs. And in that stillness, you are not identified with the consciousness of the mind. You are identified with the consciousness of spirit. And once you allow spirit to come in, especially you have given spirit permission to help you and you have asked for that help. Now spirit is not just going to be there like, hey, what's up? Spirit's going to be like, you asked for help. Thank you for granting me a little split second where I can come in there. And spirit will punch holes in that veil and your consciousness will awaken a little more and a little more. Another thing is the consciousness of spirit exists in the heart. So there's the mind and the heart. I also did a video on this. I think it's called The Dimension Where There Are No Problems, right? And it talks about the two different places where you live. You can live in your mind, you can live in your heart. Trauma causes you to seal off your heart with a steel door, and you don't visit it anymore. And I'm not talking about your physical heart. I'm not even talking about the place where you think of, I fall in love. The heart space is a level of consciousness where God exists. It is a level of consciousness where you exist as spirit that is not separate from anything else. It is where everyone else's spirit exists. The heart space is one space that all spirits share. We all live in the heart space. Long story. But when you experience life from the heart space, you are experiencing the higher consciousness. You're experiencing your inner spirit. And you know that you're in the heart space because the heart is the only place that experiences beauty. Your mind can think about beauty and describe it, but your mind cannot feel beauty. Your heart can feel beauty. The heart space is where you feel connectivity. When you feel the air, you're walking through a garden and you feel the sunlight and you feel the breeze and you hear the birds, and there's a split second where there is no separateness, where it is all existing as one thing and you are part of that one thing. That awareness comes from the heart space. Love, connectivity, beauty are perceived in the heart space. So whatever you need to do to get you to there, do it. Watch a sunset, watch a baby, play with your pet, go for a walk, be in your garden, and or think and meditate on memories of love, when your child was born, when, whatever. I think of my kitty cat walking through the garden, whatever, and I immediately get into that place of love. That again is a level of consciousness that is not your mind, it is your spirit. Your mind wants you to get locked in the mind, so it focuses on bad memories, pain, trauma, anger, fear, depression. It hurts. But there's also good memories. Somewhere in there is a good memory. Focus on that. Retrain your mind to experience gratitude, not just mental gratitude. At first, it'll be just an item on a list and you're experiencing mental gratitude. But train yourself to feel the gratitude of each item until eventually you can feel the gratitude of 100 things, until eventually you can feel gratitude all the time. Gratitude also exists in the heart space, which is another form of allowing divine consciousness in. So all of these things that I've told you are ways to allow divine consciousness to exist in your life for split seconds, minutes. And as you hold that, you allow your spirit to do what it's doing. So spirit is the one that's leading your consciousness awakening, but it cannot violate your free will. As long as you exist on this planet as a person with the illusion of separation, your free will is dominant. So you have to get yourself to the point where you believe that this is possible, where you want it to happen, and where you ask for help. And then you have to create moments that allow help to happen. When you create these moments, help comes. It strengthens your understanding. It pierces the veil so that you can see and understand a little bit more. And it makes your consciousness more and more comfortable with dwelling as spirit. In the beginning, your mind and your ego will fight it. The first time you sit to meditate, you will. But then after dozens of times and hundreds of times, you sit to meditate and you immediately go, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. And you jump into it because you have trained your mind to let go and to allow it to happen. But it is a slow process. However, as you do this over and over and over, it is a way of setting your intention and strengthening your will and strengthening your resolve and asking for more and more help and allowing more and more help. And the progress is exponential. So let's assume that the journey is 100 steps. The first 1% of that journey will take a week to happen. But the next 1% will take a day to happen. And the next 1% will take an hour. And then the next 1% will take a second. So it might be very slow for you to get even the slightest hint of my consciousness is shifting back to my spirit being. But then very quickly you'll be like, oh my God, I love this state. I understand this state. I'm comfortable with this state. And I allow this state all the time. And then at some point in life, you will become enlightened and you will live in this state at all time in your life. And that's not the goal that you necessarily need to strive for. You just need to get to a point where you can live in that state more and more. And not everyone has a moment like what I had where you go, whoa, I get it. Sometimes it's just little bits of I get it, I get it, I get it, I get it, and then it adds up. Whatever. At the end of the day, you will look back one day and say, I am no longer the character in the play who is dismayed. I am the actor who remembers that every day the actor gets up and plays the character willingly, observes the things that happen to the character in their lives, and goes, oh, well, that's interesting. And then continues to live as the actor playing this role, and knows that one day the role will end and the actor will persist. There will just be a moment when you realize that you have become that. I hope this was helpful. Please leave comments and let me know what you think. I will do probably a couple more videos on this series. You can follow this particular series in sequence according to the numbers on the video, but please do look at all the other videos. I only really teach one thing. I just teach the fact that underneath it all is your true being, and your true being is the best version of you, and you deserve to live that version of you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.